In the first chapter of the Practical Writer book, we learn that you have to use very specific support in order to back up your ideas or your claims. You can't just list your ideas and claims without giving them. But support needs to be written in a certain way. There are three main ways that you can do that. The first one is called quick examples. It's when you give a specific instant or occurrence of the actual topic. So for example, if you want to talk about there's many different meals available at a fast food restaurant, don't just leave it at that. Go on to a juicy hamburger is readily available no matter where you go. That's a specific detail or a quick example. To be effective, it has to be specific. So if you want to show that someone named Constance Dilettante can't stick with anything, don't write, she changes her mind a lot, or she changed her major frequently in college. Say something like, she changed her major from philosophy to computer science to animal science all in one semester. It's a very specific example of what you're talking about. Here's some examples of sentences that don't have quick examples and how they can be changed. There were many expensive cars in the school's parking lot during the football game. Change it to, there were many expensive cars in the parking lot during the football game, Mercedes, convertibles, low-slung Porsches, and red Ferraris. Or, don't say you could tell spring was here because of all the flowers in bloom. Say, tulips of all colors, yellow daffodils, and, if you want to call them flowers, even a few early dandelions. Give specific details that back it up. Now, you don't have to use colons to do this. You can easily use separate sentences. They just use colons for their example. Here's some examples of paragraphs that have quick examples. Chairs come in many different designs. Easy chairs, designed for people who like to lounge back, usually have lots of padding, perhaps a curved back and comfortable armrests. Straight chairs usually have minimal padding, a vertical back, and sometimes no armrests. Contemporary computer chairs, known as kneelers, have padding for the knees and a seat, but no back at all and no armrests. So depending on their purposes, chairs differ quite a bit. This example, over a paragraph that simply talks about chairs, has many examples. If you didn't use those examples, you basically would just say chairs come in many different designs, easy chairs, and then maybe you would say straight chairs and contemporary computer chairs. You have to have the examples or else you basically have no paragraph. Here's another one. This is actually from a textbook. It talks about how toddlers learn to speak. So it says, the 3-year-old, then, is a grammatical genius, master of most constructions, obeying rules far more often than flouting them, respecting language universals, erring in sensible, adult-like ways, and avoiding many kinds of errors altogether. How do they do it? Children of this age are notably incompetent at most other activities. We won't let them drive, vote, or go to school, and they can be flummoxed by no-brainer tasks like sorting beads in the order of size, reasoning whether a person could be aware of an event that took place while the person was out of the room, and knowing that the volume of liquid does not change when it is poured from a short, wide glass into a tall, narrow one. The examples make the paragraph. If you didn't have them, it would basically be, the 3-year-old then is a grammatical genius. How do they do it? Children of this age are notably incompetent at most other tasks. You have to use specific examples to make your points. The second way that you can make examples, the kind of example, is called a narrative. It's just what it says. It's like a minor story. It has to be a specific thing that you already experienced or somebody you know of already experienced. You're talking in the past tense. So last week, I got serious about hunting for a job as a computer programmer, so I began clipping ads from the newspaper and talking to some friends of mine. One friend, Joanne, called me on Wednesday evening and said that her company needed someone right away, but she didn't know much about computers or programming. If I knew the right programming language, she felt sure she could help me get an interview. The problem was that the company wanted to make its decision the next day. I went right from the phone to my computer, looked at the company's homepage, and found out it has several big projects using Java. Perfect! And its homepage describes some of the projects in detail. The next day I showed up for the interview, confident and ready. If this person hadn't used the narrative example, it really would have been a very dry paragraph about how to get a job. Here's another one. Allison Marks, a 23-year-old graduate student in architecture at the University of Colorado, had a blood pressure of 180/120 in February. Her doctor prescribed Elavil, which Allison took for 3 months until she became so busy with exams that she found taking medicine too much trouble. After exams, she still neglected her medicine. As a result, her blood pressure rose so sharply that in September she was rushed to the hospital with a stroke. Here you have a story about a person and you're thinking, well, do I really care that she's a graduate student or that she is at the University of Colorado? But the answer is yeah. When you put that information in the form of a narrative, she actually becomes much more real and the topic becomes more interesting and more convincing. The final, so now you're going to try it. So let's just pretend that your teacher has assigned you to write a story, or to write a narrative, a one-paragraph essay about something that distracts you. So you write your initial rough draft using quick examples, and you say, although my roommate is a helpful companion at times, she is a distracting nuisance whenever I try to study. Throughout the evening, her CD player blares in my ears. Even worse, she insists on smacking her gum. She also interrupts me with questions that have nothing to do with homework. At any other time, my roommate is a friend, but while I'm studying, she's my greatest enemy. And now you're going to get an F on this paper. But why would I get an F, you say? Because I'm using specific examples. You are, but it's not as effective as it should be. Try narratives. Although my roommate is a helpful companion at times, she is a distracting nuisance whenever I try to study. Just last Wednesday night, Anna decided to spend the evening playing her classic Bob Dylan CDs. While I was trying desperately to integrate a math function, all I could hear was that my answer was somewhere blowing in the wind. Even worse, the entire time Dylan was rasping away, Anna accompanied him by smacking and popping her bazooka bubblegum. I'd finally given up on math and started my struggle with chemistry when she abruptly asked, loudly of course, so I could hear her over the music, do you think there are any Cokes in the Coke machine? My stomach started rumbling and my throat suddenly felt dry, even drier than the chemistry text I was trying to read. As I dropped the change into the Coke machine, I realized that although Anna is usually a friend, while I'm studying, she is my greatest enemy. So even though all of those same topics are mentioned, the CD player, the smacking of the gum, the questions, it's much more specific and interesting if you put it in the form of a narrative. The last one is statistics. Recent statistics show convincingly that jogging is saving the lives of many Americans. Of the 12.5 million who jog at least 10 miles per week, 78% have a pulse rate and blood pressure lower than non-joggers of the same age. Estimates indicate that these joggers can expect to live an average age of 77, more than 3 years longer than the average age of their contemporaries. The lesson seems clear, doesn't it? In this particular case, you have a topic that allows you to use statistics. Using them effectively will increase the potency, the power of your argument much better. Things you need to know about statistics. You can't have ambiguous or made-up statistics. Don't say 7 of 54 football players were injured in a practice session. Well, I'm not going to worry about how dangerous football is because I don't know how serious the injuries were. But if you say 7 of 54 football players were hospitalized for at least one night following one practice session, well then I'm thinking, wow, this is a really dangerous sport. You have to define the words that are in your statements and make sure that none of them are ambiguous or vague. The last thing you want to think about is statements by authorities or experts. Why do we trust statements by authorities? Because of their character, their judgment, and their knowledge. For example, you're not going to want to say, my English teacher said that, and you're writing about heart disease, because your English teacher is not an expert on heart disease. You're going to want to do research and trust the authorities that you're using. Here again, this is why you don't want to use Wikipedia or websites that don't necessarily have experts writing them, because that doesn't make your argument more powerful. We trust experts because of their character, their judgment, and their knowledge of the subject. So you take that previous article, recent statistics show convincingly that jogging is saving the lives of many Americans. According to the Congressional Subcommittee on Physical Fitness, 78% of the 12 million people who jog at least 10 miles per week have a pulse rate and blood pressure lower than non-joggers at the same time. The committee estimates that these joggers can expect to live to an average age of 77, more than 3 years longer than the average age of their contemporaries. Dr. Hans Korpusel, chief advisor to the committee, says that joggers are the single healthiest group of people in America today. So not only do you have your authority figure mentioned in your actual text, you also have a quote taken. This is the one area that you probably could have worked on when you were writing your Of Mice and Men articles a little bit better, and something you might need to revise when we're doing the Ancient Civilizations articles. The best paragraphs that you write do all three. They refer to authority figures from whom you get information. They use statistics or quotes if they're available to help back up your ideas, and they use narratives and really specific examples to make things more interesting. We're going to be revising the body paragraphs of your Mice and Men essays and the paragraphs from your Ancient Civilizations essays based on these first two chapters of the Practical Writer book. Your homework is to read and complete the exercises that I've given to you on pages 22 to 27. You really need to read it carefully because in some cases it asks you to identify the different kinds of examples that are in the text, which I will expect you to do. And then you'll actually have to write some examples at the end of the pages. And that's the end of the video.